Welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and I am joined today by the owner, the operator of Fantasy Guides, Stephen Rippey, as well as fellow Fantasy Guides contributor, Jacob Rhodes. And today, we are here to talk about some QB and tight end tiers that are on the horizon because draft season is here. And you didn't know those tiers. I know there's people out there drafting early. In my opinion, this is too early for draft season. Push it back. You know someone's about to tear an ACL and ruin your time. If you can make one more desperate plea, reach out to your commissioner and say, Commissioner, push it back a week or two. Draft on the Wednesday or the Thursday midday. Skip work, skip school. Draft as close as possible. There's my rant for the day. Stephen, would you dare draft this early?
Let me run this by you, Andrew. In my longest running league, dare I say, almost 20 years into this league. We do it the Saturday after the Thursday night game.
No, that's psychotic.
Stupid.
Stop that. You're out of here. That's too late.
We've been doing that for the last few years. It's kind of, I don't mind it actually. Because what happens is you get some of the I want to say home leaguers, the ones that aren't really maybe as dialed in. Mm-hmm. One guy goes off and they're like taking that guy way too early. So as what I consider myself, maybe, I dare I say expert, I feel like I'm fine with some of those guys getting inflated based on having a good Thursday night game.
I hope you're an expert. That's why we have you here, Stephen. But that's way too late. You can't be drafting on the Saturday after a game. Get out of here. Jacob, does that give you some sort of anxiety hearing?
Yeah, weekend before is perfectly fine.
Exactly.
Or a couple of days before.
Weekend before I'd prefer. But I'm just saying this one, listen, there's a lot of dads with, I don't know, we can never get our schedule worked out. We've just decided that's the best time.
Yeah. No, what happens is you guys procrastinated your schedules. You're like, oh crap, it's now or never.
That actually might be more accurate.
Nightmare fuel for us commissioners. Shout out to all you commissioners out there. I know the struggle.
We stand firm with you.
Yeah.
That's not me, though. I'm never trusted with that much power. But I am trusted with the power of running this podcast, so I'm going to get us rolling. As I mentioned at the top, we're going through quarterback and tight end tiers. Go back, listen to the previous episodes. We did some great stuff making and going through our running back and wide receiver tiers. People are loving that. Go in, comment, watch it, enjoy it, take in those tiers, find our tiers on Instagram, buy our draft guide, get it there as well. But today we're doing QBs and tight ends live here. We have some consensus quarterback and tight end tiers. We'll start with the quarterback position. And for those looking for a little news updates, we will hit that at the end of the podcast. Don't you worry, we got you. But for now, Steven's made us some tiers. And I, of course, went in and gave each one a name. But these are Steven's tiers that he made. So I agree with most of these. Jacob, however, was insulting Steve very personally after he saw these tiers.
Before he joined.
Exactly. Yeah, Steven, you should have.
I texted over my tight end tiers, and within a nanosecond, I got that thumbs down.
Like,
I don't use it often, so
yeah.
No, he actually got that.
I actually don't even think Jacob looked. I think that's his default setting.
So the first one.
No thanks.
Disagree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ready to disagree, though, is Jacob, as we get into quarterback tier 1. Tier 1, I have called buying brand name. Because with these quarterbacks, I feel like you know what you're getting, but you're paying for it. And you're hoping when you pay for it that you're getting something you're going to love forever. I'm actually being moved in this way in my personal life. You buy something nice because it'll stick around longer. But that's what you're hoping with these quarterbacks. And tier 1 is Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. These are your brand name, household names. Steven, is this kind of why you put these in a group together? These are the dudes who we feel pretty confident are going to finish top 10 names that everyone knows?
Yeah, and I think you know what you're getting. Like this is a proven, reliable, vehicle, dishwasher, television set, whatever you want to call it. I think they're reliable. I think you know what you're getting, and I think they are elite at what they do. I think you could nitpick the order a little bit. I have it Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes in that order. But I wouldn't be surprised if any of those guys, if this order gets flipped any which way, I would not be shocked if any of them finishes number 1.
Jacob, I'm going to pin this question your way first, and then Steven, you're going to rebound off of it as well. Someone in this tier is going to disappoint us tremendously. And it probably won't just be because of injury. I feel like every year there's a quarterback. Last year, Steven very accurately, very loudly called out Patrick Mahomes, who was taken firmly in this tier last year, would not be able to hold up to his ADP. Obviously, this year we think that'll be different. But Jacob, who in this tier do you think will not or could not, are you most afraid of not living up to the brand name value?
So I actually like Patrick Mahomes to have a good season again this year and get back to his elite quarterback form. So I think if anyone's going to disappoint in this tier, it might actually be Josh Allen. He's coming off 15 rushing touchdowns. That's not going to be replicated. There's no shot. And he lost his
set the
top
record
target.
last year.
Well, he tied it. He tied it with Jalen. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's not going to be replicated, and he lost his number one target. So he's going to have to find someone else he can rely on that offense. I think he will. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think if there's anyone that he has the most question marks going into this season, just with the team surrounding him.
Well, Andrew, let me ask you, are you in agreement with that? What's your stance on Josh?
I think if you're forcing me to take a position on a guy who's going to disappoint, I think I'm in agreement. It's Josh Allen because he's going the highest in a lot of platforms.
That too. Yeah.
On every single platform, RT Sports, Sleeper, CBS, Yahoo, ESPN's the only place I'm seeing he's going as the number 2. And yeah, he's got no weapons. Stephon Diggs is a big sad. He's gone. He's out of there. You know, that might be addition by subtraction for the vibes, but for the football field talent, scoring points, doing good football things, that's a loss.
It's second round pick right now. That's tough.
Doesn't Patrick Mahomes going number 1 on ESPN just feel right?
ESPN,
he won the Super Bowl, so he should go first. That just feels like an ESPN ranking, like ADP.
You're going to see this a lot. God bless you if you draft on ESPN. That was my first place to draft. I moved since onwards, and I missed my time there. It's nostalgic.
You grew up.
ESPN ADP it's something. We love you, ESPN.
I tell you what, I need to get into more ESPN leagues. I'm going to try to have my home league switch to that because so many are just going off the ADP.
Absolutely. Yep. Steven, who in this tier scares you the most, though?
It's the same, Josh Allen. I just think I know it. I've seen it. I've heard everybody yell at me that, without, Stephon Diggs, when he fell off last year, Josh Allen was just fine. With any of these, whether it's him, whether it's, like Patrick Mahomes last year, he was the QB1 the previous year, a full season without really a true alpha wide receiver, it affected him. And I think that's going to affect Josh Allen. I think a full season without an actual wide receiver 1, because that doesn't exist on the roster. I'm not convinced any of his wide receivers are an alpha wide receiver. I think they're all complementary wide receivers. I think that's going to show its face.
He threw a career high in interceptions last year, too.
True.
Yeah. Josh Allen's going to have to play hero ball, and I think that could be good for some spike games and rushing touchdowns, but he's going to be
fun
more
to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible to watch for an entertainment factor, but it's going to be a down year for Josh Allen in some regard, and so it's going to make him more inconsistent. The highs will still be there, I think, no doubt. Lamar's a personal pet favorite of mine. I don't know how to put this. Class student. He's my favorite student. He's my favorite one of the class. I like him most in this group. I like Lamar Jackson this year. I think he's got the best receiving situation he's had in his entire career, and I think they're going to progress more, but that's just me dropping that hint as we move on to tier 2. Tier 2 quarterbacks, I have deemed as incredible deal, or is it on the discount rack for a reason? I'm keeping with this clothing idea. And we have in that tier Kyler Murray, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels, and Jordan Love. There's a lot of name value in this tier, a lot of guys people are excited for, but are you getting an incredible deal not having to take them in those first couple rounds like you do the tier 1 guys? Or are they pushed back for a reason and they're ready to ruin your time, Jacob? There's a lot of variance here, but who has the most upside out of anyone in this tier?
I'm a big Kyler Murray stan this year, so I think he has the most upside in this group, but I think this tier is too big for me. Steve, I think tier 2 is just too big. I think Kyler Murray and Anthony Richardson are different than the rest of this group, and I would rather have both of them and their own sort of, we can rush, and I don't know if Anthony Richardson can throw, but he can rush really well, so he counts. But I think those two guys are just a little bit ahead of these prolific pass catchers and the one rookie that's thrown in here.
I can understand that. But I can still see, as much as I don't like the pocket passers. So like your CJ Stroud, your Joe Burrow, to some extent now, Dak Prescott, and Jordan Love. I still see a scenario where CJ Stroud has a 50 touchdown season. So I still think that's a possibility with the weapons that he has, with how good he looked as a rookie, knowing he's going to probably get better this year. I could see them even passing more with the weapons that they have. So I do see a scenario where, yeah, he might not have that rushing upside, but I still think he's pretty safe and has a pretty high ceiling. So I extended this. We already saw Dak Prescott. He's had multiple good seasons of 20 plus points per game. Now the CeeDee Lamb stuff, it's making me a little nervous. I will admit to that.
Don't like how much it's dragging on.
And with, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase to the same extent, it's making me a little bit nervous. So who knows, maybe a couple more days, maybe I break this tier up a little bit. But I can see your point in that. But as far as I have this now, I think that if anything, it's a mini tier with Richardson and Murray and then these other guys.
Yeah. A tier of we can break fantasy football. And I think those two guys that can really run with Kyler and AR, I think they provide a little bit more value.
I am in the boat that I think Anthony Richardson has the highest upside. I'm not convinced he's going to have completely changed his style enough to make me nervous about injuries.
Would you stop Steph Curry from shooting threes? Shane Steichen says, would you stop him from shooting threes? No, you would not. You're not going to stop Anthony Richardson from running the dang ball. I know. Frankly, he doesn't throw it very well.
But I'm not worried about Steph Curry hurting his elbow shooting threes as I am Anthony Richardson hurting his shoulder when he lowers it.
Yeah, that might be a fair concern, but one I will certainly ignore. AR, please stun on him. However, I really do think that Kyler and Anthony Richardson have the most upside of this tier. But, I mean, the guys I'd be pushing out of that tier are Jordan Love, the QB5 from last year, and Dak Prescott, the QB4 from last year. And CJ Stroud, who everyone thinks can go nuclear. And Jaden Daniels, who might run for more yards than anyone in the NFL. So it's like, I really do. At first, Steven, I was taken back. My shoe was coming off. If you listen back to the previous podcast, my shoe was ready to be flung at you. But I eased off. I respect this. And frankly, if we're willing to put these guys in a tier, I'm not saying rankings wise, I wouldn't take Jordan Love over Kyler Murray. But if I could see similar outcomes for them, there's a 50 pick difference between the top of this tier and the bottom of it and ADP for drafts right now. So this is kind of one of those, if you're not getting one of the top quarterbacks, you can wait a little bit. Let that drag out.
I think, Andrew, that's going to be a theme for this one is I don't want okay, if I'm taking any of these quarterbacks, depending on which platform I'm drafting on, if I'm that guy that, you know what, I need the elite quarterback, which I'm not even opposed to, depending on where they're going, just get the last of those guys if you can. Don't take Josh Allen if he's going at pick 21, but take Patrick Mahomes at pick 48 or something, or pick 40, wherever he's going on the platform. I just want to be the last in that tier. And I think this is a good scenario for all of these quarterback, especially the onesie positions.
Absolutely. I think I'm not a big fan of the first tier. I think they should be in their first tier, but this year I feel uneasy about a lot of those guys. And so this tier 2 people, they've had less proven success at the really high levels, but I think they really could be just as shaky as the other guys. So I like the tier, Steven. There's a lot of value to be had here, but we're going to go ahead and move on to tier 3. And I've deemed this one. Tier 3, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Or is it still just trash? Kind of still keeping with this, are you getting a good value idea like at a discount store? We've got Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jared Goff. To be noted, tier 1 and 2 combined had 11 quarterbacks in it. So by definition, this is the last group of guys who are probably one of your starting quarterbacks. So this is a very important tier to get right and see and find your most upside in. It gets scary at this point. So my question here, starting with Jacob here, in this tier, who would you be most comfortable starting? If you left your draft, you punted the position, who would you feel most comfortable starting your year with?
If I punted the position and I was drafting one of these guys, it would absolutely be Jared Goff, and primarily because of how he starts the year. He gets to start the year at home against the Rams, at home against Tampa, at Arizona in a dome, and then home against Seattle, and then he gets a bye week. So that's four games against weak secondaries, all in enclosed environments. And I think we've seen this in the past. You know to start Jared Goff at home, and you know to start him in a dome, and he's getting that the first 4 weeks of the year. I think those first 4 weeks of the year, he's probably going to come out just guns blazing. After that, I might look to, trade him. But I think if I'm leaving the draft with one of these guys, that's one of the dudes that I'm fine starting him at the beginning of the year.
Jared Goff is an incredible house pet. It's a nice poodle that you keep in your house and you love them inside, and nothing bad will happen, and they're perfect to have, and they're well behaved. But once you take that thing outside, you're getting leaves all up in its coat. It's not meant to go hunting. Don't take that dog outside. Keep it inside where it's nice and cute and loves to be and can chew on its little bones and have all of its toys there. Because when you put Jared Goff in the rugged outdoors, is where things go very, very south very, very quick. So I absolutely love you pointing out that Jared Goff, start your year off strong, and then maybe you end up streaming the position with some of these other guys who, one of these guys in this tier will not get drafted in your league, just because not everyone's going to carry multiple quarterbacks. Steven, in this tier, who are you most comfortable starting?
I think it actually might be Caleb Williams.
Ooh.
I feel like I've seen enough of his playmaking ability through the preseason. Not that I was not expecting to see some of that. I just think that the weapons, his dual rushing ability, and Jacob just brought up the schedule with Jared Goff, and I don't disagree with anything he said there, but Caleb Williams also has a pretty easy schedule. He's got the Titans, Texans, the Colts, the Rams to start off. He's got, according to just using last year's data, he's got the 5th easiest schedule. He's got the 6th easiest to start the season, and he's got the 3rd easiest for the playoffs. Now we don't have to worry about the playoffs right now. you could draft both of them, but if I'm just going to pick one, I'm buying the hype. I think Caleb Williams is. I think he's going to be good for fantasy.
I think Jacob's presented a good point. This is the part of the draft where you're taking these guys late enough that you could and should potentially take 2 quarterbacks. You can sell me on if you get Dak or Joe Burrow even in tier 2 to still take a second quarterback later. You can take 2 of these guys. It maybe your cup of tea is you stack Jared Goff and Caleb Williams because Jared's going to have that nice start, going to be consistent. You pair him with Caleb Williams if you can, per ADP says you certainly could, and you see where Caleb progresses. And if he's a hot mess, at least you still have a nice, safe Jared Goff, where you don't have to go, out in the wilderness and be terrified of, am I going to have a quarterback? So I really like the idea. If you're going this late with quarterback, you definitely need 2 of them.
Yeah, I did this last year, Andrew, in that industry league that we did at the Expo, and it was working out for a short period of time because I don't remember. I want to say it was like back-to-back picks. I think I took Tua because I kind of punted at quarterback and then had a panic moment, but I took Tua and then Herbert, and it was looking good for a while Herbert was putting up 22 points per game, and then he got injured, and it was not looking so good. But no, I think when you're waiting that long, you're in round 9 and 10. Taking back-to-back quarterbacks, I don't mind that.
It is okay to stream. I got Dak off the waiver wire last year, and Brock Purdy was on waiver wire, and Jordan Love was on the waiver wire.
That's right. Dak was waiver. That actually may have been the other quarterback. I know I had Dak in at least one league last year.
Yeah.
But I forgot how late he was going. He had one bad year, and people were like, he sucks.
And then he was quarterback 3. Yeah. So the quarterback 3, 5, and 6, and Goff for a period of time at quarterback 7 were all on the waiver wire at one point last year.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, if you're drafting guys in this tier, a lot of them are going to end up being really byproducts of the situations they're in. Like these tier 1 and 2 guys, we're pretty confident in saying they could just take a schedule and tear it down and beat it, even if it's a tough one in some sort of way. This tier is a group that probably needs a little bit of help. Like Tua started off super duper hot last year, faded down the stretch. Dak was the exact opposite. Pair them up. Be ready for one guy to start one way and then not finish that way. You didn't draft them high enough that it's going to hurt you. I think Trevor Lawrence could be in for a big jump. I'm fine starting him.
Agreed.
I don't like Tua. I'm out there. I don't think I can't trust Justin Herbert. I could not take Justin Herbert as my only quarterback and hope that is my guy.
Yeah,
generally that's fair, but we've seen the success with them. This offense is going to be so different.
I feel like it's one of those things where I know everybody's down on Herbert, I did a little research, to take this with a grain of salt because I'm not a medical expert, but we've seen Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Peyton Manning. Now, the Peyton Manning one's not so good, but a lot of these guys with that Liz Frank injury, and they still had good fantasy seasons. Like, it didn't completely derail their season. If Justin Herbert did more running, then I'd be concerned, but it's still Justin Herbert, man. Like, you're getting him so late that I guess
his second year numbers, I feel like people forget, and it was only a couple seasons ago.
Well, and like I said, he was at 22 points per game last year before he got hurt.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm still a believer that that Justin Herbert's going to surprise some people.
And Justin Herbert's suffering from that plantar fascia.
Oh, what did I say? Oh, sorry.
Liz Frank. Yeah. It's very similar in injuries to, absolutely be honest with you. It's their foot. It's going to slow him down. I don't think Herbert has the weapons to really propel much incredibly high upside, but Herbert's going to be playable. Like, it's just, he's kind of going to be Jared Goffy in some sort of weird way, even though those two being together is weird.
I don't think he has the upside he had with Keenan Allen like he had last year, but I think he has Jared Goff upside.
I don't know. I heard some guys today just talking my head off about how Josh Palmer could be the next Nico Collins.
Tier 4, moving on. I don't have time for this.
I don't know if I could deal with that.
If only you could see our DMs, people listening and watching at home. It popped off today. These guys just think Josh Palmer's as good as Nico Collins, and I'm gonna leave the conversation there.
Just to be clear,
Jacob, I had to take an ibuprofen after that.
I took a shot of tequila.
It was a good debate. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Josh Palmer, sorry, buddy. Tier 4 quarterbacks. Now we're pushing it into the muck. These are some dudes who probably are not getting drafted in your league. And honestly, I noticed something in common. Tier 4, these guys are so out of style. That's what I've labeled the tier. It's Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield. The average age of this tier is 35, and the average quarterback in this tier is missing at least 3 body parts, whether it be a ligament, an arm, or bone.
But how much are they getting paid in this tier?
Oh, there's a lot of money in this tier. So this tier is terrifying. It's probably going to be streamed a whole lot, but you know that somebody in this tier is just going to have that touchdown luck. It's going to strike, and these are your league winners kind of sitting in a group here, not because they're going to finish as the QB1. There's no way. These guys are not finishing QB1. There's literally not a possibility of it. However, this is where Jordan Love was taken last year. And if you got Jordan Love at the end of your season last season, then he probably won you a league because you got him for nothing and he was the QB5. So, Steven, I'll start with you this time. Which one of these quarterbacks against Stafford, Cousins, Watson, Rodgers, Smith, and Mayfield has the best shot at going from streaming option to hero at the end of your year?
Andrew, it's so last season is what the title should have been. So
we got to go back a few seasons for some of these guys.
Yeah. Much as I would like it to be last season.
The proper title. Okay, sorry, I had to remember that. What was the question?
Oh my God! So Steven belongs in this tier.
Who's the next Dak Prescott, working
Steve? For him? Yes. Which one of these guys is going from streaming option to winning your league?
I think honestly, the safest that could do that is probably Matt Stafford. But the one I'm still holding that candle for, that flame for a little bit, is Aaron Rodgers. I really think Aaron Rodgers with Garrett Wilson, who we know is a very good wide receiver. If Mike Williams can get things together, he's the one. He was so good, in his prime. And last year we just didn't get it. I still think there's a chance he could be that guy. That's if we saw Joe Flacco do it for 5 games, I think Aaron Rodgers still got it in him.
Aaron Rodgers, man, he's wily. Again, he's one of those guys who's missing a leg. Jacob, are you at all worried that we're seeing headlines at a Jets camp that say, for instance, this is from Gangrene Nation, New York Jets news, Aaron Rodgers melts down in nightmarish practice. I'm hearing word that things are not going well, and Salah's just saying, it's because our defense is just really that good. You a little worried about Aaron Rodgers out there?
It's the same stuff with Rodgers as it has always been. If he's playing a full season, he will definitely be better than what this tier is kind of showcasing. So I'm not worried about what's coming out of Jets camp. I don't trust those guys.
I got to be a devil's advocate. New York media, I trust you. I'm out here trusting you. These guys hate you. All of New York, I've got your back. All right. All right, Jacob, what for you, though? Which one of these guys do you think could take that step up better than just a streaming option?
I think the guy that can take that step up, he did it 2 years ago as the quarterback 5, and it's Geno Smith of all
Ooh,
guys.
now you're talking my language.
I have been pounding the table for DK Metcalf. I like the other receiving options there. We were talking about Fant in the group chat today a little bit. Not as high on him, but still. And then I love Kenneth Walker as well. So I just have a hard time not liking Geno Smith if I like all of the options that he has to throw the ball to. And again, he's only a year removed from that quarterback 5 season. So I think stuff is going to be good for fantasy football in Seattle this year. The team's not going to be great, but fantasy football, that's what we care about.
I love it. I think the defense has some cool pieces to it. I think the team, this is a good second half team, I think. And at least defensively, because they have to learn this Mike McDowell system. There's some young guys who need to grow. But that defense could be dreadful at first. And you know what that means? It means we're out here scoring fantasy points because they're in some shootouts, and that's a darn good division with the Rams offense, the Niners offense, and the Cardinals offense. Dude, there's going to be a game at the beginning of this year. I don't know, when do the Cardinals and Seahawks play first? Because neither one of those guys have any sort of players on defense. Well, no established players on defense, and both of those offenses are get me hot and bothered. So there might be a 100-point total in one of those games.
Week 12, we have to wait.
Oh, that's the first time they play?
12 and 14.
That's just mean. That's just mean. Well, that game could still hit 100 total points, but I do like me some Geno. They're going to chuck it this year. Like, that is the one main calling card of Ryan Grubb's offense in Washington was we throw the ball downfield and shoot. That's who they have there is guys who will catch the ball far down the field. So I love that. That's great for fantasy. I don't want to give my answer as to who I think could become a streaming option.
Say it.
I just don't like him. It doesn't feel good. You have to
say it.
You have to just click his name and then wash your hands.
I know who you're thinking. Say it.
It's Deshaun Watson. I know, go look at the Browns, and I'm sure even Jacob has the same feelings of, man, it's
I want him to be good.
Situation. It's hard to root for, but
yeah,
he's just going to be good, I think. And he didn't play many games last year, so it's going to misconstrue a lot of stats. But if you go look at the games where he had 2 20-point games, 1 19-point game, and he really only played in like 4 games. And he's putting up good numbers. He's got the rushing upside. He's aging, so he's kind of getting away from that as he gets closer to 30, but he's still not even 30 yet. I think he's got some legs in him. I'm hearing there's a huge change in the Cleveland Browns offense. This is supposed to be a new look offense. It's not going to be ground and pound anymore. It's going to be a lot of RPO. It's going to be a lot more downfield. It's going to be a lot more playmaking for Deshaun. All of this is good for fantasy. Just press the name and walk away and pretend you didn't do it.
He can throw the ball still. I've been dialed into camp, obviously, and there are a lot of dimes being thrown by Deshaun Watson.
Andrew, I want to, before maybe this is a draft I do, right before, I got to find a league where I just punt at quarterback completely.
Mm-hmm.
And I take in the 15th round, Deshaun Watson, and in the 16th round, Geno Smith, and I just let it ride. I want one of those leagues because I'll bet you that's going to work out in one league if I do it.
Yeah.
I think at some point you're just stacking value. Like you're just stacking positions and getting really deep at receiver and running back for no reason. Like unless you're starting 3 flex and 4 wide receivers, I think at some point you're just missing out on value. But I like the idea. It sounds fun to chase.
You're absolutely probably missing out on value. But
yeah.
Intentionally.
Unless these guys hit.
It's just fun.
That's the thing. But to Jacob's point, like if Geno does what he did 2 years ago, or if we have one of these guys do like what Jared Goff did last year. We just talked about all the guys on the waiver wire. Mm-hmm. If one or both of those guys hits, then you don't. And potentially you hit on another player in one of those.
You're just saving your fab.
Listen, I'm not saying do this as you're in one league. This is the strategy to follow. No. I'm saying be in multiple leagues and have one YOLO league. You need a YOLO league.
It's called your family league. That's free.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you
And
go.
when the family league where someone's going to draft Dak Prescott after his bye week early, I don't know, whoever's in an early bye week will get dropped at quarterback, and you'll pick them up even though they never should have been dropped in the first place. Love family leagues.
I do want to point out Deshaun Watson's schedule real quick.
Mhm.
So week 1's could be rough because they play Dallas, but after that he's got Jacksonville, the Giants, the Raiders, the Commanders, the Eagles. Like that is
nice.
Those are some awful defenses that he's going up against, unless they completely make a turnaround and this stuff can't happen. But on paper, you just got to hold him. You don't start in week 1, but I don't know. Things could look good after that.
Some of those defenses, man, they are terrible. They make bad defenses look like good defenses. I don't know how else to say it. They are just dreadful, and so that is a great schedule to play in. Deshaun Watson, I think you can probably do something this year. Tier 5. Going on to it, this is the crumbs. This is like someone who is a Giants fan might take Daniel Jones, who's in this tier, but otherwise these dudes are not getting drafted. You probably will never stream them unless you're at your most desperate stage, but tier 5. Half of these guys won't finish the year as starters. That is what I labeled it, because that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in a dynasty league, go find these guys backups. Go find a way to capitalize on the fact that we think Will Levis is the starter this year but by week 9 he might be so bad that he's replaced by Mason Rudolph. So there's a value that you should take advantage there in dynasty. But for redraft, Steven, I'm gonna let you place your name by one of these guys. And at the end of the year, we can play a clip where you predicted one of these streaming options or trash can picks
Don't take
ended
mine.
up being top 10. Which one of these guys do you think actually are you putting your name by could be top 10?
I think oh God.
Yep, there's one. There's one in there.
I think there's a couple.
Oh,
I mean, if it's going to be top 10 with this group that you have there, it has to be one that can actually run. I mean, as god awful as Daniel Jones did look the other day, he did have a 12-yard rush in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's Daniel Jones and Will Levis. I think those are the only two out of this godforsaken tier that have any kind of upside. But I think the floor is just as this, it's pretty pitiful.
I was gonna say Will Levis. I just out of this group of guys, I think he has the best weapons. Sam Darnold's there, but I don't think he's starting more than. I don't know. I know McCarthy's hurt, but I still don't think he's going to start a full season. So I think Levis is the most likely of this group to play a full year. So I think I'm leaning towards him with just games plus talent around him.
I'm going to say right now, Derek Carr is going to finish as the QB 16.
Yep.
That's fair.
You can stamp that.
You can have it.
I mean, overall, not on points per game. Just overall.
Yep. You can have it. That's all you.
Yeah.
Derek Carr almost belongs in the tier 4 just because you know what he's going to be. You can stream Derek Carr points this year, but you're never going to tell yourself, "Oh man, I can start this guy every week." You won't be doing that. Yeah, you're going to pick him up and start him in DFS one week because he was the cheapest quarterback that actually might throw the ball more than 10 times. But you can't actually convince yourself that.
You're going to be down by 15 points going into Monday Night Football and see him as your only option and go,
crap.
He's been in the league since 2014. He's never been better than QB 12, never worse than QB 20. So he is always
literally
in that spot.
QB 16.
I'll take any chance I can to crap on Derek Carr. He's just lame. He's the kid who went to your school and took everything too seriously and just got really intense. I bet he was an ROTC kid. Shout out to ROTC people. But Derek Carr just has ROTC vibes. So we're intense, kind of really into everything. Probably tried really hard in PE class. That was you, Derek Carr. Don't say you're not. Will Levis, I'm a little disappointed in his rushing upside.
Yeah.
In college, it was there. Yep, he had it in college at least one season. He got hurt, so his last year in college, it went down a little bit. Gave him an excuse. The most rushing yards he had in any game last year was 25, and that was the only time he eclipsed 20 yards rushing. However, I see this dude trying to tackle people like he's a linebacker.
He's pulling a Justin Herbert on us. All this rushing upside potential that he's just leaving untapped.
Lawrence kind of has done the same thing too.
Lawrence rushed more than
actually
this.
Rushing a little. He almost had 400 rushing yards last year.
Yeah, Levis
339.
Levis ain't doing much on the ground, but anyway, so that's kind of capping my upside. I think Daniel Jones would be my answer coming out of this tier. I also want to lob out there Drake May. He's a dude who has more rushing upside than people think. He is incredibly athletic.
Mhm.
He's known to throw the deep ball. I think he's a Will Levis arbitrage, but if you're going arbitrage this late in the draft, probably don't do it at all. Drake May is just a name I want out there. If you're in 2 QB leagues, Superflex, that's one I would consider drafting with my last pick or wherever you can get him and snatching him and seeing what happens. He may not be the starter to even begin the year, but there's some reasons to be excited about Drake May. The rest of them can't get me excited.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm too close to it. Even though I moved, I'm no longer in Denver.
You're going to ask me about Bo Nix, aren't you?
He is.
We're talking upside. It's just not there. It's just not there. I see him run, scramble, and it looks cool. And
I don't think it actually looks that cool.
It looks kind of cool. You see some plays where he rolls out to his left, makes some athletic throws because Sean Payton tells everyone that he sees Patrick Mahomes in him. Eye roll. And you see it in those one moments where he decides he needs to roll left for no reason because the protection was actually fine and there was a man open downfield, but he didn't hit him in the first place. Bo Nix doesn't have the upside to be chasing there.
I think he has the second worst receiving core in the league probably too, so that's not good for him.
Marvin Mims, anyone? Tim Patrick off of 2 major knee injuries. Cortland Sutton?
Let's just say he has looked decent in the preseason.
I think he's going to be good.
You can start,
but not for fantasy football.
He could be startable. I can definitely see a world where he's Derek Carr territory. QB 15, QB 16, QB 17. He's not got any upside, and I'm not chasing anyone who doesn't have upside that late. All right, gentlemen. Quarterbacks. Got him out of our system. Always fun to talk quarterbacks. Everyone should make their league 2 quarterbacks, super flex, in my opinion. I think it's
super
more
flex
fun.
For sure, yep.
Absolutely.
Andrew, I posted that bye week schedule the other day, and I had so many people messaging saying this is pointless. Like you shouldn't even look at bye weeks, blah blah. And I said to somebody, well, if you're in a super flex league, I think you probably should.
A little bit of attention, maybe.
And they were like, oh, I kind of forgot about, a lot of people don't do super flex, but yes, switch to super flex. I was hesitant for a long time.
Yeah.
I made the switch. It's my favorite of the platforms.
There were some people saying they still start their playoffs week 14 too.
Oh my God. I had people commenting that. I was
get it together.
We're like, what, year 3 now?
Yeah. 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
For those wondering at home, there's still bye weeks week 14, and that could be the first week of your playoff. If your league is old and they still haven't adjusted it, make sure you talk to your commissioner. This is the time of year. Say, hey man, have you looked into these settings?
Well, and if that's the way your league is run, I would mail it in today so it's there by the time your draft starts, so he can make the changes.
You probably do have to mail in a letter if your league's like that. So.
Whenever you hand put up your draft selections on the board and you're mailing in your roster every week, just send a little note in with your carrier pigeon that you would like the bye weeks pushed back and that there are 18 weeks in the NFL nowadays.
Yeah.
Oh, grandpas. Respect it though. Anyway, that is our QB tiers. Again, go listen to running back and wide receiver tiers from previous episodes, but don't tune out just yet because we're marching forward into tight end tiers. I just want to plug the previous episodes because tight ends, it's going to be less names to talk about here because, dude, tight end it usually sucks. This year is actually pretty exciting for tight ends. This is one of our more optimistic years in a long, long time, as long as I've been alive, which isn't that long, but it's looking better this year. And so it actually matters, some of these tiers, and we're going to have to watch it with a careful eye. Tier 1, it's not going to leave many surprises. It is tier 1, Travis Kelce and the new Travis Kelce, because it is Travis Kelce in this tier and Sam Laporta, who was the tight end 1 last year. So, Steven, I got to ask, you made this tier. Who do you prefer personally? Because you could see ADP in people's rankings. These guys get flip-flopped a lot. I know Jacob actually has a different tight end 1. So, Steven, I'm asking you, who do you like more?
I still think it's Kelce. My biggest concern with him is only his age. I just think he's still that connection with him and Patrick Mahomes. He averaged more points per game than Sam Laporta last year. Laporta, I think Laporta's good. I think the fantasy community, I don't think the analyst community quite so much, but the people playing think he's in his own tier right now, just based on the back and forth I have with them. And I just don't think he's night and day better than a lot of these guys. I think he's good. I think he scored a lot of touchdowns last year.
What about you, Jacob? Who would you prefer out of these two?
I would prefer Trey McBride out of these two.
That is not an option. You're teasing your selection. Hold it for later. Sam Laporta or Mr. Travis Kelce. Let's pretend someone else is like-minded like you already snagged Trey McBride. Now you're stuck with him. Who you taking?
Yeah. I would go with Travis Kelce this year. I think it's more likely for Laporta's touchdowns to come down and Kelce's to go up this year. So while I am concerned a little bit about the usage we started seeing at the end of the year with Kelce, I would still lean towards him. Just know it's not the same old Travis Kelce. He's a little closer to the field now than he used to be, but still very good.
I'm in agreement. I would also prefer Travis Kelce over Sam Laporta. One of the biggest indicators of fantasy success is volume, and I'm much more confident that the Chiefs offense and Travis Kelce will have more passing upside and more volume involved in their situation. It's to also be noted that Travis Kelce was the lowly tight end too. Well, the Chiefs had one of their worst seasons because their offense was absolutely dreadful, and Patrick Mahomes only had 27 passing touchdowns. He has been above that mark each of the last 1, 2, 3 seasons, and only one other season has he been around that mark. In 2022, he had 41 touchdowns. And you can't tell me if he can approach that mark again this year, and a lot of those will go to Travis Kelce regardless. Travis Kelce will play in the goal line packages and score touchdowns. I like Travis Kelce a lot more here.
Well, and I just want to real quickly say, maybe it's right here. I was trying to find the post we did about it the end of last season, but Tony Gonzalez, another former Hall of Fame tight end that played for the Chiefs. His age 35 season, he was the tight end 4. His age 36 season, he was the tight end 2. His age 37 season, he was the tight end 2. And that was playing with Matt Ryan as his quarterback for much of that. So I think that Kelce could be considered a similar Hall of Fame type tight end to Tony Gonzalez, but he's playing with Patrick Mahomes. So yes, Tony Gonzalez is an outlier, but I think that Kelce is as well. So I think it's not, he's going into his age 35 season. I think it's possible for him to put up these type of top 3 numbers similar to what we saw from Gonzalez.
My worry with Kelce is how the usage we saw from week 8 on, with Rice getting a lot more involved and scoring a lot more points. Week 8 on, Travis Kelce was the tight end 11.
Yeah, but then what did he do in the playoffs?
Okay, yes, and I think they're going to do that again. They save him for the playoffs. The playoffs don't do us any good for fantasy football, so I don't like that usage. I don't like that Taysom Hill was a better tight end in the second half of last year than Travis Kelce.
Well, I guess part of my thing with that was just people were saying like, oh, he's fallen off, like Kelce's not the same anymore. And I do think there's some truth to that, but then he was fine in the playoffs. So he showed that he's still got it.
Yeah. I just think he's picking his spots more so than he used to.
Put some respect on Taysom Hill's name, dadgummit. That is a guy I'll be taking late in drafts so the cows come home because, man, it's just a fun ride. Travis Kelce, though, he's surrounded by more competition this year. I think that is a concern, but you can't tell me Sam Laporta is surrounded by any less competition. And as we've stated, Patrick Mahomes, as long as he's there, Travis Kelce can earn targets, not just because he's amazing and he's going to drag this offense on his back. That offense is going to be good. Travis Kelce's going to be in it. And if he's picking his spots, I bet he picks to be in to score touchdowns. And that's what drives fantasy points up the roof. And moving on to tier 2. This is where the discussion, I think, gets hot and steamy a little bit. There's a lot of upside in this tier. Tier 2. Do you prefer an oldie but a goodie or the hot new thing? Because in this tier is Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride, and the oldie but a goodie Mark Andrews. So we basically have the guys who haven't put it all together in a full season before. And then we have Mr. Mark Andrews, who actually was the last tight end to overtake Travis Kelce in a full healthy season of Travis Kelce prior to Sam Laporta. But he was hurt last year. We haven't seen it necessarily. So a little bit of discussion to be had here. I'm going to start with you, Jacob. If I told you one of these guys was the tight end 1 this year, I used my magic crystal ball, looked into the future. One of these 3 players was the tight end 1 this year. Who was it?
I teased it a little bit earlier. Trey McBride's my tight end 1 right now, so I by default I have to go with Trey McBride. But it wouldn't surprise me to see Mark Andrews at the top of there either. If he plays 17 games this year, it would not surprise me one bit to see him as the tight end 1. We've seen it before, so that helps. But
Go on
yeah,
more about your love for Trey McBride, though. Why do you think he actually should be? He's your tight end 1 overall.
Yeah. Yep, he is. Just eye test target usage. I think him and Kyler are a really good pair. I know people are going to bring up Marvin Harrison, but I just look at the wide receiver targets. There's no other competition out there at receiver. Sorry, Zay Jones. So I think you're still going to see a lot of targets for Trey McBride. Marvin Harrison is not going to impact that negatively. We can see both of those guys succeed. And as we know, it doesn't take much for tight ends to be successful in fantasy football at that top level. It was only 15 points per game last year to be the tight end 1, just under 16. I think that's more than reasonable for Trey McBride to hit. He hit that on certain spans of the year last year. So personally, for me, I'd have McBride and Andrews in tier 1 with Kelsey and Laporta. I feel like they're on the same sort of wavelength with upside and floor, but that's where I'm at with it right now.
Trey McBride, to your point, he averaged 14.9 points per game at the end stretch of last year. This guy, Zach Ertz, he was running ahead of Mr. Trey McBride through the first 8 weeks of the season. As soon as they finally got him out of town, respect and love for Zach Ertz, respect your elders. As soon as he was out of town in the back half of the season, McBride was on pace to be the tight end 1 in a points per game basis. Steven, question goes to you. Tossing it up, he's catching it. Question is, who would be the tight end 1 overall if I told you one of these 3 was at the end of the year?
I still think it could be Kincaid. I think he's going to be hyper targeted by Josh Allen. I think we see a big year 2 jump. He had the highest catch rate of all the tight ends last year, 80% catch rate. I know he didn't do a ton with the yards, but I don't think that's a knock on his ability to create yards after the catch. I think he's actually a very athletic, fluid tight end. I think he's got the highest upside here. He might have the lowest floor of these guys. I like all 3 of these guys, but I just think the target competition with him and Josh Allen being at least top 3 quarterback, in my opinion, I think he's got the highest upside.
He's the one who we look at the end of the year and we're like, yeah, he was a tight end 1, guys. What were we thinking? It's the top target for Josh Allen because the guys running behind him are Khalil Shakir, not done much. Although we like him as a sleeper, not done much. Curtis Samuel, who's now down with turf toe, and he's been a wide receiver 26 at best. And Keon Coleman, a rookie. So it's not, you don't have to extrapolate much to see the success that this man could have. And do you have something to say there about Mr. Dalton Kincaid, Jacob?
Kincaid worries me just because of the splits we saw with Knox last year. When he came back from injury from weeks 14 on, Kincaid was sitting there at 7.4 points per game. So I don't like those splits. Just play them both on the field at the same time. His snap percentage went way down with Knox. They were trying to make him pass block. Like, set him up outside, do what the Raiders are hopefully going to do with Brock Bowers, who we'll talk about in a little bit, and play him on the outside.
I'm just hoping the coaching staff realizes this is easily the best passing weapon. Just figure out ways to get him the ball.
I agree.
I have to look at my rankings. I actually forget who I have higher, either Trey McBride or Mark Andrews, but Mark Andrews, man, he's phenomenal. He was limited last year, only played in 10 games, and this isn't even filtering out the games he left early. He averaged 13.5 points per game, which would have been the tight end 5. And we saw Lamar Jackson throw for a career high in passing yards, and he's going into year 2 of the Todd Monken offense. And they were talking all last year of Lamar was just learning the offense last year. And Zay Flowers was learning how to play professional football last year. And now we have Derrick Henry introduced in this offense. I really, really think the Ravens are a sleeping offensive giant with a worse defense now and really could go boom. I mean, we saw... Go ahead,
Their
Steven.
efficiency could be crazy good.
Absolutely incredible. I really, really like Mark Andrews. I'm not taking Dalton Kincaid ever if Trey McBride or Mark Andrews are on the board. However, I think he belongs in this tier because at the same time, I think he has a significantly better shot than the guys behind him to finish at that tight end 1 overall. So to each their own.
I don't think you have to I don't think there's a scenario in very many leagues where Trey McBride gets taken after him. I think that you're going to have that. And I won't disagree with that. I really like Trey McBride this year also. But I do think there's a lot of scenarios where Kincaid's just sitting there as the fifth tight end, and you're going to have like a tough choice to make because it's going to be him or a running back probably.
Absolutely. I really like this tier of guys. I'm not taking Travis Kelce. I'm not taking Sam Laporta. I'm waiting for this tier before I take a tight
Agreed.
end. But I also like this next tier of tight ends as well. This is tier 3. I called them vanilla ice cream because I'm not excited about them. And I'm not going crazy. At the same time, if you offered me some vanilla ice cream, I'm not telling you no. I'm going to have a good time with it. I'm going to take my ice cream and add some sprinkles and some caramel syrup and some, you guys know that hot fudge that like forms like it hardens on your ice cream. So then you get like a little crunchy chocolate. Have you had that before?
I don't.
No.
Oh, I think it's called chocolate shell. Look into it. It's at your store.
Okay.
Go to your local Walmart. Not a sponsor.
Your
Please
local
sponsor us, Walmart.
Hashtag
Go to your
not a
local Walmart
sponsor.
right now and pick it up.
Walmart. Okay.
Go Walmart. But what I'm saying is Evan Ingram and George Kittle are the guys in this tier. I'm not thrilled to be taking them. I like them and everything. But when you're taking these guys in your drafts, you're able to secure a lot of good players before them per ADP and really spice up your team. And you drop these guys in, and now all of a sudden you're excited. You've spiced up your team with the sprinkles and the caramel and the chocolate shell. Evan Ingram, George Kittle. I'll start with you, Steven. Tell the world about your love for Evan Ingram and why you think he is your okay, I'll pause this too. You love Evan Ingram. You're well known for it. And what do you prefer, consistency or explosiveness at the tight end position? Because I really think that's the discussion here between Kittle and Ingram.
Well, I mean, I would rather have the tight end could get me like 20 points per game. But if we're comparing it as far as where you're getting them, I just really like taking Evan Ingram because I like the wide receiver and running backs versus taking one of the tight ends where they're going. And Evan Ingram, everyone wants to point out that his splits with Christian Kirk. I mean, he was fine the year before with Christian Kirk in the game. He has back-to-back seasons of over 70 receptions. He's only scored 4 touchdowns the past 2 years. I think those 4 touchdowns are probably his floor. I think he could get 6 to 8 at the very minimum. He was 9 points off of scoring the same fantasy points as Sam Laporta, and he's going much later. I do think his ceiling is limited, but I think it could be better than it was last year. Like I think everybody keeps talking he's going to have this huge regression, and no, I'm not projecting 114 receptions from him, but I think he could definitely get 80 or more, and I think he could score a few more touchdowns, and he's going into year 3 with Trevor Lawrence, and if we all think Trevor Lawrence takes a step forward this year, I think that positively affects Evan Ingram. I just think this is one of those things where it's like they're going to use him. They got rid of Calvin Ridley and a ton of targets, and yeah, they did add 2 guys, but they added a rookie who's a great deep threat. They added Gabe Davis, who's also more of just an outside receiver. I think that helps Evan Ingram.
Absolutely. It's just he's going to catch a lot of passes. You're not going to hate that you took him, especially because we have George Kittle in this tier, and I think rightfully so, right with him, and you get him around after. You can have your entire starting lineup filled out by the time you're taking Evan Ingram, depending on how many spots you have. But you could have your starting lineup taken, and then you add Evan Ingram on top of it, and it looks really, really good because he does have top 5 upside. I don't think he has tight end 1 upside, but he's got top 5 upside.
Yeah. Andrew, remember 2 years ago, remember when he had the 40-point game? And then last year,
yeah. It like propelled him way up from like the tight end 9 to the tight end 4 or something.
If we can just get more of those games. I mean, he finished the year.
He had a big one last year.
Well, these were his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, and everyone's going to point to Christian Kirk being out. But I mean, they still happen. He had 23, 32. He did have a 7-point game, and then 17, 12, 24. So he finished the season really strong. I still think he's an athletic tight end that is a mismatch. He's not elite, but I think he's going to be fine.
Where do you lean here, Jacob? Do you prefer an Evan Ingram or a George Kittle?
I lean towards the Kittle side, actually, because I like, if I'm drafting tight ends this late, I think I definitely agree that Evan Ingram has a lower floor, but Kittle has weak winning upside to me, and I value that a lot in my drafts in general. I guess it kind of depends on how I'm building out my team. If I have a lot of high risk players at other positions, I'd probably lean towards Ingram. But if I'm looking for someone that can win me a week, I think that's George Kittle with just the 40 bombs that he can drop for your team on occasion. So I like his upside. If Ayuk leaves, I like him a whole lot more, but we'll see what happens there. I don't know why that news is just completely stalled, but it has. So it's irrelevant right now. But
Jacob,
he's been so good.
Just 49 fewer receptions than Ingram last
And
season.
still a top
And
5 tight
only
end.
2 more touchdowns.
Hey,
Just saying.
and guess what? 0.8 points per game less is it. So the difference just isn't
he's
that
very
big.
efficient.
Yeah,
I'll give you that. But
efficient.
I think his floor, and is this what you said? I think he's got a lower floor probably than Ingram.
Which is weird to say because he's literally been tight end 5, tight end 3, tight end 4 the last 3 years. So it's,
I've been doing a lot of these mock drafts, and I kind of flip a coin with the two of them.
Yeah.
When it gets to the 6th round, I'm kind of fine with either one.
That's fair.
This is kind of where I go running. This is my running back theory normally of one guy's driven off of purely volume, and I don't think he's actually that amazing. So what happens if you rip the volume away? He's not going to do it on efficiency. And I don't think Evan Ingram's volume is going anywhere, but I have to have a tiebreaker, and talent is usually my tiebreaker. George Kittle, if, again, something happens in that offense where one of CMC, Ayuk, or Debo go down, just need one of them to go down for a stretch, heck, maybe at the end of your season, and they decided we're going to throw George Kittle a bunch of touchdowns, now you have a league winner at the tight end position that could be the tight end 1 for a 5-week stretch.
So we're missing a guy in this tier the more you talk about it.
I really think so too, but I'm wondering who you're leaning towards. So let's get to tier 4. Tier 4, I've called it, did you get a massive discount or just hot garbage? And that includes Kyle Pitts, David Njoku, Jake Ferguson. I say would just grab Kyle Pitts by the collar and drop him into tier 3, in my opinion, with the upside that he possibly has. Jacob, who are you hot on in this tier?
That's who I was saying. We know the talent's there, for crying out loud. If the dude gets volume, it's the sky's the limit. He has just as much ceiling as these other two guys. And we've seen a tight end 6 year, to be fair, so we've seen it somewhat, but I know we're all just waiting for Kyle Pitts, and I'm sure people aren't ready to get hurt again, but if you are, he's sitting out there. He's waiting.
If you're ready to get hurt again, he's ready. He's the toxic ex who wants to drag you back, and man, you're going to have a good time for those 2 weeks before the season starts after you draft. Once you draft and you actually play, you might not like it, but it's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Steven, what are your feelings on Mr. Kyle Pitts or anyone else in this tier? Who has the most upside in this tier? Who are you most excited for?
I'm not taking Kyle Pitts. I'm fine just missing.
You're fine missing.
I still don't think I'm gonna look back and go, oh God, I wish I had Kyle Pitts. Like, I don't see him putting up such a good season that I won't get similar points with any of these other tight ends. I've found myself doing a lot more David Njoku as of recently. I think people forget how good he was, especially down the stretch.
Week 8 on.
Yeah, from the last 10 weeks of the season, he was the tight end 1.
Yep.
The last 10 weeks.
Wow.
We're not talking about like a 4-game
big
sample
stretch.
size. And he averaged 15.5 points per game during that stretch. So knowing I can get him at pick 80, I mean, he's going a good bit after Evan Ingram.
Yeah.
As much as I like Ingram, with Ingram, you have to decide, are you taking Ingram or are you taking Kyler Murray? And so I've kind of been switching my habits a little bit of taking like Kyler Murray in that spot and then getting Evan Ingram in the next round. And I'm been pretty happy with it. Sorry, David Njoku in the next round.
Mm-hmm.
David Njoku is incredibly talented. Jake Ferguson is the other guy in this tier. Kyle Pitts and David Njoku were infinitely more talented than Jake Ferguson, but Jake Ferguson is the second target in a Dak Prescott-led Dallas Cowboys offense.
Maybe
and that's
the
why
first.
he's here. Possibly the first.
No, that's a
CeeDee
good
Lamb,
point.
we haven't gotten to the news yet, still hasn't shown up to practice and probably won't play a snap until he gets a new contract. And Jerry's out here telling him that we won't miss you out there, Mr. Lamb. Oh, shut up, Jerry. But this tier has so much upside. Now, let it be known, historically, the tight ends 6 through 12, terrible bets. You do not want to draft them. They only disappoint you. And like Steven said, you're having to take them over players like Kyler Murray or other great values that we really, really like. So historically, do not take this bet. However, if I'm going to take this bet, these guys are enticing. They're exciting. And I think tight end's better this year. So I really think the tight end dead zone starts in this tier 4, whereas tier 3, 2, and 1, I'm more excited about. That's normally, I think, our top 5 tight ends who usually perform. But yeah, dude, Kyle Pitts, I'm in. I'm really in this year again. Steven, stop me. Please text me. Take my phone away. Don't let me stay up late at night texting Kyle Pitts, telling him how much I love him.
Aren't you shocked, Jacob? Andrew is into players that were drafted usually in the first round of the NFL draft, going into their second, maybe third season. He's always in on them.
Not a lot of success. Sounds a lot like Drake London, weirdly enough. So
I love him. But I love him because Kyle Pitts was hurt last year. That's the only reason I'm not ready to move on yet.
I think he's going to have a good season because I was in on him the last 2 years. So
now I'm out.
Now I'm switch, and now he's going to make me look stupid for the third straight year.
On top of having the worst quarterback situation and worst play caller situation in the league last year, Kyle Pitts was hurt, literally couldn't turn left. It's funny seeing his charts. Go check it out. He had major surgery that no one knew about. That's why we were taking him high last year. On top of regular excitement, we didn't know he was injured. They reported it late.
Did they get penalized from that at all? You know,
I think talked about regulating it better, but
yeah. It's like they said he had a knee injury, but they didn't say to what extent he had that knee injury. And it was a full tear of his MCL and maybe a partial tear of his meniscus, if I'm recalling correctly. It was a pretty significant injury. That's why I'm back in on Kyle Pitts, ready to get hurt. We need to talk about this last tier of tight ends, though. And there's one name that stands out above the rest for me as clearly the most talented. Like we said, I like highly drafted, talented players. Sue me! Dang it. Tier 5. The waiter shows up, but you were too distracted talking, so you don't know what to order now. Steven, I thought of you when I wrote this. This is totally a Steven written all over it. He shows up to Denny's or Texas Roadhouse or whatever, and big menu, and he was sitting there chatting. Oh, hey, Darlene, haven't seen you in a long time. And Steven was too busy talking, forgot to find out what he wants to order, and he's got to take a long shot. Crap, I'm the last one to order now. I'll take and you decide you have to grab something last second. That's these tight ends. This is, again, if you wait till the very end of a draft, you're either ending up with Bowers, Goddard, or Schultz. Chicken fingers is the answer. Steven, is that you at restaurants?
It's absolutely me. And I'm sure you two are not surprised, but there's so many times when they get to me and I'm like, oh boy, shoot.
Yeah, I'll go last.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And they're like, we already went through it, sir. You went back to you.
Steven, tell me, though, which one of these tight ends are you most comfortable starting this year?
I'm just going to go Brock Bowers. I've seen enough of Dallas Goedert. Like he's fine. Every now and then he'll give you a 20-point game, but
Schultz is the same.
Yeah. Well, now, especially with Schultz, with the addition of Stephon Diggs, I think it hurts him even more. I think even Saquon Barkley in Philly is probably could affect Goddard a little bit also. Brock Bowers, I'm just banking on the fact that they're like, dude, we just drafted this guy in the top 15. We have to move him around. We have to not look stupid that we drafted him when we already drafted a tight end last year. So put him at fullback, put him at slot, put him out wide, put him at tight end. I think they're going to do everything they can and try to get him the ball. So I'm going Brock Bowers.
They showed that in the preseason too. So that's exactly where I would lean. It was promising what they showcased in preseason for Brock Bowers. So I'm hoping they stick to that plan. I hope they utilize this generational tight end very well because they have another very good tight end on their offense, but he's more of a prolific type tight end, Michael Mayer. He's going to block a lot for him. So let him block and let Brock Bowers just go run routes. I think that's fine.
Brock Bowers is a problem. He is an offensive weapon. He is the guy they took. They took Brock Bowers in the draft because they knew someone right after him. The Raiders knew people right after them were going to take him. He was an incredible value where he landed in the NFL draft, and the Raiders didn't think he'd be there. Yeah. So they absolutely swooped him up.
Andrew, that's like if you got the 12th pick in the draft and people are worried about CeeDee Lamb and you had no intentions on drafting him, but all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're like, I know he's not reported to camp yet, but I have the 10th pick and he's just sitting there. Like you kind of, it forces your hand. I think that's what happened with them.
Brock's also going to be the number one target on that team by the middle of the season when Devontae Adams gets traded to the Jets. So
Fingers
know it's going
crossed.
to happen, right?
Fingers
If something
crossed.
happens to Adams, he really is probably the top target. He's probably the number 2 target to start, maybe Jacoby Myers. Yeah, Bowers is very talented. And again, when we're taking guys this late, is there opportunity? Yes, there's opportunity. Is there talent? Yes, there's talent. No, it's a bad offense. But you're taking him as one of the last tight ends. You're the last team taking a tight end. You're taking him. You've got 2 of the 3 things I want: talent and opportunity. Sure, go for it. Dalton Schultz, can't talk me into it. We're arguing over, is it Tank Dell? Is it Stephon Diggs? Is it Nico Collins? Well, it's definitely not Dalton Schultz. So you can't really talk me into him, but he's on a good offense. So
we're missing a name.
If someone takes 2 tight ends in front of you and you're stuck taking Dalton Schultz, stream him a couple weeks.
You know,
Dallas
Andrew, if I miss out on one of these top 10 tight ends, I'm stalling the draft and I'm like, guys, I'm not picking until someone trades with me. Like, I don't care. I'll sit here, assuming it's a pen to paper type draft.
Yeah. We are missing a name here, though. I feel like we have to talk about TJ Hawkinson, who was the tight end 1 in points per game last year, tied right there with Travis Kelce. I know he's going to start the year hurt, but I actually like drafting guys that are starting the year, hopefully on IR, and then I can shift them to that IR spot after I draft them, and then I can pick someone up off waivers, and I got an extra guy on my roster all of a sudden.
And that's a PSA for, you have to have IR spots in your leagues. Because I think
I'm hoping you do.
I do like that move if you can take him super late. What's his ADP right now?
It's not far enough. I'm not taking a guy
that is tough.
He's not playing the first half of the season. He's just not. He tore that ACL really, really late. He's not going to play half the season. When he is back, data says he's going to be playing well below what he normally plays at. He'll basically be playing like Dalton Schultz, except he's going to be catching passes from Sam Darnold behind Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison.
Yeah, by that point, it'll be someone different.
You can't talk me into TJ because you're just going to get your hopes up. It's going to be Kyle Pitts, but with longer hair and in Minnesota.
Yeah.
He's super talented, but it's
Minnesota.
I'm kind of with you, Andrew. Like, he's going right at like just a couple spots after Chase Brown and a couple spots ahead of Brian Thomas, according to Fantasy Pros consensus ADP. It's too early for me too.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm doing it. He's just going to take up your IR spot. There's no way you have infinite IR spots. And if you take him there, you're going to drop someone else who got hurt who you should probably hang on to. I'm not doing it. I won't do it, Mr. TJ. You can't make me, TJ.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Alrighty. But that wraps up our tight end and quarterback tiers. Again, go back, listen to our previous episodes of wide receivers and running backs. We did an excellent job there. For now, though, we'll roll into the news. And there's a couple stuff we'll blitz through here real quick just to get it out there because this is really important for your draft, especially this one. Jahmyr Gibbs is reportedly, we just got this information today, returning to practice this week. The reason this is big was he suffered a hamstring injury in, I believe it was practice because they aren't starting any starters in the preseason. And we were panicking in our group chats because a hamstring injury is exactly something that lingers for a long time. And I started dropping him. I think I made him my running back 7 out of panic because there was a real shot that this would linger the entire season and really doom an explosive player who wasn't going to get a ton of volume. So Jahmyr Gibbs looks like he should be good to go, though. Data says, per injury experts like Deepak, the sports med analyst who we do a lot of work with, it looks like if he's back when returning this early, likely the hamstring injury wasn't that bad, not anything to worry about. Steven, are you okay now with Mr. Jahmyr Gibbs where he was prior?
I think the panic meter has gone away a little bit. Trying to think in my latest rankings. Actually, let me see where I put him because we got to update these again. I try to get them updated before every weekend because I know people do drafts on the weekend. But
I put him back in my RB4 right where he was before.
I did the same.
Hold on, let me see where I had him. I had him as the.
Part
of the problem is I'm so high on some of these other guys. I would probably put him. Are you guys taking him over? I don't know how high you guys are on like Barkley, for example.
Not that high.
No.
Well, we have him at 4, so you can guess the 3 ahead of him.
Yeah, I'd probably put him at like 5. I'm thinking.
That's fair.
But you're putting him back regardless of who you had above him before. Is he pretty much back where you had him prior to the injury?
Yeah, I think it just depends on how high you are on some other guys. But yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
not overly concerned.
Yeah,
Excellent.
And he's not listed here, Andrew, so I'll bring him up real quick. But Stafford had the same exact thing going on with a hammy, and he came back to practice today. So worry meter went down a bit for Puka and Cup there as well.
Let's be fair. Stafford's hamstring is needed a little less than
his.
It's an old hamstring, but not
Still.
a used hamstring. So
I
that
like
hamstring's still going to
I
keep
like it when
going.
Andrew said he would donate his hamstring to Jahmyr Gibbs, as if a completely torn off hamstring with Gibbs would be any worse than Andrew's fully healthy.
Gibbs hopping on one leg is more athletic than me and both my hamstrings. Sorry, Jahmyr Gibbs. I shouldn't have offered in the first place. One guy who does need a hamstring donation, though, and I'm panicking on a little bit, Jaylen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers, dealing with a hamstring injury, suffered it in preseason action, is reportedly out for multiple weeks. Mike Tomlin's coming out and downplaying it. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. I'm worried about it. It's going to be a similar thing with Jahmyr Gibbs. So if I draft today, I actually have a slow draft starting Thursday because it's a slow draft. I know I told people don't draft this early, but it's a slow draft. You got to do what you got to do. I'm going to drop him. I'm dropping him in my rankings mentally a couple spots because this is going to linger. I don't want to deal with it. He has running back competition. Jacob, how worried are you with Mr. Jaylen Warren?
I don't like it for someone that relies pretty heavily on explosiveness. It's concerning.
He's a guy that relies on efficiency for sure.
Yeah,
just like Gibbs.
Yep, and he's already not the number one running back there. So if you were hoping that this was going to be the year that Jaylen Warren was going to be the RB1 in Pittsburgh, it looks less likely now than it did a couple weeks ago. So this makes Najee a better value than he already was. So from that perspective, I like it. But yeah, I'm out on drafting Jaylen Warren.
Now, I'm more interested, you guys, in Najee's value with this now. So I'm curious. Can we do let's look at the ADP real quick.
Name game.
Yeah, I love name games.
I slid Najee up 2 spots in my rankings. I basically put him at the top of a tier that he was already in.
Okay, so would you take Najee over David Montgomery?
Yes, I already was.
Okay.
No.
Because I was taking Montgomery over him prior to this, but I would probably take Najee. I don't know. I still like Montgomery.
I would still take Monty.
I'm not doing that just because you know what David Montgomery is. Unless injury happens, he cannot get a full workload. I think there's a world, especially now, where Najee gets a solid 60% of the workload.
What about Najee over Kenneth Walker?
No, I'm way high. I'm irresponsibly high on Kenneth
love
Walker.
Kenneth Walker.
Hey, I just saw the shoe fling by my head. I thought that was just the tier-based.
How dare you?
Najee or, let's say, Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones.
I think I have
I'll
Najee
take the pass
higher.
catcher.
I think I had Jones and Najee in the same tier.
Najee can catch passes. He's done it his rookie year.
He did it with Ben Roethlisberger. It's not happening.
It's Russell Wilson now.
Russell Wilson's also Mr. Checkdown later in his career.
I have Najee higher.
Yeah,
I'll take Jonesy.
Let's see. I was already pretty high. What do you have him as, Jacob? Your running back what? Do you have that pulled up?
I do, and I can tell you that Aaron Jones is my running back 18.
What's Najee, though?
Najee is my running back 25.
See, I've got him at 21, and I feel like I want to move him up a little bit. Problem is, I still got David Montgomery ahead of him. I got Raheem Mostert, Javonte Williams, Kenneth Walker. I've got those guys ahead of him.
James Conner.
Oh, buddy,
I need to move
James Conner.
James Conner's tough because he is so old and injury prone.
Steven hates old players. That's his calling card. Steven's anti-old player. I love old players. Go, Joe. Go, James Conner.
Yeah, I don't know. I might move Najee over some of these guys, though, now. Just knowing I think he's going to get a decent workload. And here's the other thing, too. Jaylen Warren, okay, he might be ready by week 2 or 3. I think there's a good chance he could re-injure that hamstring also. So
exactly.
I think Najee is going to prove to be a value by end of year.
You can make that same argument for David Montgomery with Jahmyr Gibbs.
I'm just talking Najee. I'm not
I know,
doing this as a comparison.
Yeah.
But
you guys mentioned taking Najee over Monty.
I don't know that I'd take him over Monty, but I like him. I feel very safe taking Najee Harris where he's going. I think he's going in the 7th round right now.
Yeah, I just don't see a ceiling with him, so it makes it difficult for me to get excited about.
I think
Najee
he
Harris.
could reach a similar ceiling if we see extended time missed by Warren. I think he could come close to what he did as a rookie.
Ceiling is Najee, if he could earn 60% of the backfield because he's just a good running back, where Jahmyr Gibbs ain't going anywhere. Jahmyr Gibbs could get 60 to 65% of this backfield, and David Montgomery gets relegated. And I also think there's going to be checkdowns raining in Pittsburgh. But moving us on real quick, Curtis Samuel, just to mention briefly, another injury. All this does for me, he is turf toe. He's week to week. This just took Curtis Samuel, automatically put him below Khalil Shakir, who I was high on Curtis Samuel, not as high on Khalil Shakir. I had to put Khalil Shakir now ahead of Curtis Samuel. It's not impacting fantasy in a huge way, but maybe presenting more opportunity for those guys to see who the best pass catcher in Buffalo would be. Just some minor update there. The more notably, we were talking earlier, the Diva wide receiver summer is here. Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, still no contracts, still not practicing. We have Chad Ochocinco out there saying Jamar Chase won't play unless he gets a contract. Take it briefly, gentlemen. Which one of these guys are you most worried about?
I am most worried about CeeDee Lamb because Jerry Jones is an idiot. Dude is just asking for it, and CeeDee's doing the tweet stuff and Instagram story stuff that just
deleted all of his Cowboy stuff off his social media.
Yeah, it just is never
he followed
good.
the playbook.
He is,
and all of a sudden he's like he's got odds up now for which team he's going to be on next.
I'll be honest,
I don't like it.
I'd probably agree with CeeDee a little bit there. Jamar Chase, I feel like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are going to have a conversation at some point.
Yeah, because he's got 2 years left. He's being weird about it.
Yeah, I think that's just like Joe Burrow's going to be like, bro, what are you doing? Come on. Like, you're a year out from your contract being extended. And you haven't done what CeeDee Lamb already did. CeeDee Lamb just had an amazing season. So I think he's got more not pull. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, he's got more room, as far as like, look what I've done. CeeDee's already done that. But I'll be honest, I'm still not that worried about any of it. I can't tell me the last time a wide receiver held out. Like, I think I asked ChatGPT the other day, and it's like, it's just not happened. Like, we just have not really seen wide receivers hold out in the last decade. So I still think the only worry I have is, does he come to camp out of shape and like tweaks a hamstring?
That's the worry, is small tissue injuries are very much like, you have a much higher probability of those occurring if you are not participating in full walkthroughs and drills and preseason.
It's a buildup. I mean, go play softball for the first time, if you haven't played, and watch all the injuries pop up. Like, I know we're not elite athletes, but I think to some extent that applies to them. If they're not ramping up towards the season, they're more likely to get injured.
Yeah. Again, point out, Jahmyr Gibbs wouldn't want my hamstring. So yeah, I'm going to get hurt out there if I don't stretch warm up, get those ligaments going. I'm most concerned about Brandon Ayuk. He is the least open path to volume to compensate for potential drag and efficiency. Even though the offense is really good, he has to outplay guys like Tebow and Kittle and CMC if he wants work. So he's got to be really good on every single target he gets. The other guys are target hogs in their offense. The last one to be mentioned is Gardner Minshew. He's back, baby. The long hair, the legend with the mustache. He's freaky in Las Vegas, and he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders over Aiden O'Connell. Steven, how long does this last? Does Gardner actually finish the year as a starter? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. This is the most boring one. I want Gardner Minshew because, like, him on offense and then Max Crosby on defense, that's entertainment. I think there was a video of him today with the shirt off and the mullet, sweaty, practicing. Like, don't we all want, to see just this character?
I love it.
Although what's his name? Aiden O'Connell looks like one of the guys from Super Troopers, so he's also interesting to look at. But I don't think it matters. I think for the offense, I think it's a slight upgrade to have Gardner Minshew, though.
But apparently, Devontae Adams wanted O'Connell, so from that standpoint, I don't love it. But Adams isn't even practicing right now, so what's it matter?
I don't know. Andrew, you watched enough Colts games. Michael Pittman was pretty good still with Minshew starting for most of the games last year. I think it lowers, a player like Adams' ceiling, but I think he'll be okay. I think
Pittman had a career year last year with Minshew.
Yeah,
he had to get all of the targets in a really good offense that ran really fast and ran a lot of plays. And this isn't Shane Steichen calling plays, and that is a huge, huge deal They won't throw the ball downfield. Minshew is Bo Nix-ish. He's not throwing the ball downfield.
No,
you just won't see it. People keep saying Michael Pittman's not a good downfield receiver. Guys, he's 6'4" and very fast. Michael Pittman's good down the field. There are plays where he does well down the field. Gardner Minshew doesn't throw down the field. Devontae Adams is going to have to eat on targets. I think this is really good for Brock Bowers, in my opinion, because Minshew loves a good check down, likes a little tight end in the flat. I think this bumps up Bowers in my mind a little bit, and it really does solidify that Adams has no ceiling. But any lasting opinions? It doesn't make a huge difference to me.
This was kind of I talked about this the other day, but I'm not super excited about this news. It's just like, I think we all knew this was coming when they got him.
I think we're still expecting a quarterback switch at some point during the season too.
See, I thought it was going to be Aiden O'Connell because he's the young guy, and he's the incumbent, and then you let Minshew take over when he sucks. I didn't think this was going to happen this early, and it's going to be a crapshoot. If Minshew doesn't work out and you go back to the incumbent young guy, that's going to be a tough look.
Yeah, but Antonio Pierce, he's like a Pete Carroll type. I feel like he's like a player's coach, and
people love him.
You want Minshew's like probably a guy that stood out to him as far as attitude, and there's probably a factor that's, I don't know, he's just got an attitude that maybe Aiden O'Connell doesn't have.
They're battling the Broncos for fourth in that division either way. So
I just hope the Broncos do get fourth, because I just want a high draft pick next year. That's all.
If we are spending way too much time on the Las Vegas Raiders on the 80th minute of this podcast, so let's get out of here. If you're listening to this podcast, clearly you want to win your league, so please go back and listen to the other podcasts that we have on here. Again, the running back tiers, the wide receiver tiers, any of the sleepers. Next, Nico Collins, if you want to hear some Josh Palmer news. Again, I have to drop the name Josh Palmer. We have some great stuff. Go listen to it again. Tell us in the comments. Please get involved in the comments. Tell us what we should talk about next, what you think of our tiers. Are we dumb? Are you also the person at the restaurant who orders last and forgets to look at the menu? Let us know in the comments. I'll personally respond to every single comment I can humanly possibly get to. Also, get the draft guide. Don't listen to our voices. Just skip all of it. Get you a draft guide and read it. We are getting all of that good information there and statistics. Follow us at Fantasy Guides on all major platforms, especially on Instagram as our mainstay, but find us on X, TikTok, YouTube, anywhere you get a podcast, you will find us there so that you can consume our content. I don't know if I mentioned draft guide at fantasyguides.com. Make sure you're tuning into weekly podcasts. People who listen routinely to us, we're going to be picking up the podcast rate whenever we get into the season, multiple podcasts a week. Reactions, buy, sell, start, sits, more. Everything. Cover zero, comedy hour. Oh, we're ready for it, and you know you want more of it. Season's here, boys. Let's get excited for it and say goodbye to the friends at home.
Peace.
Later.